Welcome back to the Arise News Hour. I'm Charles Anya-Golden. Now, tens of thousands of protesters have taken to the streets in Sudan to demonstrate against military rule. 7 people are believed to have died and over 180 injured in clashes with forces. Sudan has been in turmoil since the military ousted President Omar al-Bashir in April. Protesters want the military leaders to relinquish power.
This is all just fear from them, the military. They didn't expect for the people to come out like this. As much as they tried by cutting the internet to push people out by all means necessary, they couldn't have imagined that people would gather like this just the 6th of April and after.
The feeling of freedom, we are trying to bring back the memories of the sit-in. Even though it is painful, but the feeling of freedom will never escape us. We will continue until the government becomes civilian. The military don't want us to continue so that we join up to the other matches. So they use tear gas. In these matches before, when the tear gas starts, people don't go back. But I don't understand why today they ban people from continuing, that we are going to stop. I think they don't want more blood on their hands. They didn't want lots of death. So they made us come back and we're just sitting here now. The people who died are not better than me, honestly. Their death is all on our necks. So of course we are not going to abandon them and not return for 1 second. Like they say, if we don't die like them, then we will bring justice to them.
Cross-section of protesters in Sudan. Well, to look at that story in more detail, we can cross to African Affairs analyst and publisher of Africa Briefing, John Ofe-Ansah, who's in our London studio. Good to talk with you, John. What are you hearing now about the reason for the shooting and the defiance of the protesters? Because before the protests yesterday, the military had said it was going to put its troops out on the streets to protect the protesters.
Yes, the Transitional Military Council are blaming, I think, some elements of the paramilitary RSF, the special support forces. They are blaming them, and also blaming some certain criminal elements amongst the civilians for the latest bloodshed, which has so far claimed 11 lives.
Well, that's an interesting update, because we're still saying 7 people were killed, but you're saying 11. Do we know whether any of those who died? Do we know whether any of those who died were on the military side, or were they all opposition figures?
The 11 people, dead people, are all on the from the opposition sides. But according to reports, 3 members of the Rapid Support Forces, the RSF, were also injured. So, and the military, the deputy head of the Military Council, General Dagalo, popularly known as Hemeti, who used to be in charge of the RSF, of the Rapid Support Forces, is adamant that the military are there, like you said in your report, are there to protect the civilians, and that some rogue elements within the RSF are responsible for the deaths of the civilians. And again, also blaming some criminal elements within the civilian protesters, for raking up all this.
And John, what about mediation? Because at one stage there was African Union and Ethiopian government mediation or some measure of intervention. Is that getting or going anywhere, or is that pretty much at a standstill at the moment?
Well, the proposals are at the table. The AU-Ethiopia proposal, is calling for a civilian-led transitional government, which both sides, the TMC, claim that they accept, and the civilian protesters also, endorse, that proposal. But nobody knows why, so far they have not been able to get back to a negotiating table, though the civilian protesters, are showing their resolve. They want to keep the pressure on the TMC, the traditional military government, to form a civilian-led transitional government, and something I believe the TMC are reluctant to accept. The TMC are looking at a military-led transitional council. So herein lies the stalemate, right? And the people are, their resolve has really hardened. Like yesterday, they called that 1 million protest march, which was largely, heeded to. And also that yesterday's protest also marked the 30th anniversary of the jihadist back coup that brought the ousted al-Bashir to power. So it was more substantive and also a bit symbolic.
And of course, that call to protest was heeded in spite of the fact that the internet was taken off. People simply used SMS texting and face-to-face communication and still managed to bring a huge number of people out onto the streets. And just remind us, John, I mean, you touched on this a moment ago. There was, some weeks ago, supposed to have been an agreement on a 3-year transition. Then that fell apart. I mean, do we know going forward, do we have any detail at all on what might be acceptable now and what might be the basis of negotiation going forward?
It appears you are referring to what happened just on or around June 3rd, when both sides seemed to be happy with the proposal tabled by the AU and Ethiopia. But things took a turn for the worse when the RSF, the Rapid Support Forces, fired, on the civilians and killed about, I think, 100 of them. So that actually, turned the tide, against the whole process, if you like. And so far, that tide, again, hasn't turned for the better. The people, are hardening their resolve and are bent on seeing the end of this transitional military council, who I believe most of them are complicit in the excesses of the al-Bashir regime. Most of them are complicit, and again, some of them too are complicit in the 100 or so people that were killed around June 3rd, right? So they want to hang on to power for fear of retribution by way of trials, that kind of thing. So in the foreseeable future, I don't see how the situation is going to be de-escalated. The military say, the TMC say they are on the side of the people and that they are willing to negotiate with the civilians without any preconditions, okay? But the civilians, I believe, are piling plastic. They have the upper hand now, though with the support from UAE, Saudi and Egypt, the TMC has their hand strengthened, in a way, but the people realize that, look, if they keep their resolve, if they dig their heels in, at the end of the day, they would achieve their purposes.
Okay, John, thank you very much indeed. John Ofe Ansah is the African Affairs Analyst and publisher of Africa Briefing.